Let's go back to the two pillars of brand audit, authenticity and consistency, and he gets an A+ on both also. Until he's ready to say the facts, what would he possibly go there and say? Hey, I know what I'm doing, or you won't believe what's coming, right. And it would also hurt his brand. You got to believe that when he speaks, it's going to be a boom.
That was our friend Donny Deutsch on what awaits us from Special Counsel Robert Mueller in last night's episode of The Circus. And as we've been discussing, the Washington Post out with the most detailed look yet inside the investigation rooms. The grand jury witnesses arrive one by one at the windowless room in the federal courthouse on Constitution Avenue in downtown Washington. They are struck first by how commonplace the setting feels. More classroom than courtroom, two witnesses said. One of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's prosecutors stands at the lectern. The jurors, diverse by age and ethnicity, are attentive and take notes. The questioning is polite yet aggressive, surprising witnesses with its precision and often accompanied by evidence, including text messages and emails displayed on a large, old-fashioned overhead projector. And this description of the man at the helm, quote, Mueller, the 73-year-old former FBI director with a hangdog visage and rigid bearing, looms over the investigation, but is an intermittent presence in the windowless room in the E. Barrett Prettyman Federal Courthouse. Robert Mueller's investigation has been described to me not as an iceberg with most hidden under the surface, but as an underground village where everything is concealed and we have very little idea of what's happening aside from the legal filings and leaks from attorneys for witnesses. The Post adds this on the probe's scope, quote, the range of witnesses Mueller has called in has been breathtaking, from White House counsel Don McGahn at least twice to Avi Berkowitz, the 29-year-old personal assistant to Kushner. Joining us at the table, Jason Johnson, politics editor for The Root and an MSNBC contributor, John Heilman, MSNBC national affairs analyst and co-host and executive producer of The Circus, Paul Butler, former federal prosecutor, now a Georgetown law professor, and I guess a member of the Justice League, right? If you believe Avenatti. And David Jolly, former Republican congressman. Ashley and Jeremy are still here. Heilman, let me begin with you and Donnie's description of Mueller. Pretty spot on.
Yeah, I was struck by Donnie. You know, he went through, talks about personal brand audits. And the reason I asked him, it sounds kind of a cheesy thing, but I asked him, I said, look, in the court, what happens in court matters a lot, clearly, and the legal realm is super important. But the reality is, we saw with Clinton and in other cases, ultimately this could be a political process. Impeachment is a political process, not a quasi-legal process, but not a fully legal process. And so what the court of public opinion thinks matters a lot. And what Donald Trump is clearly trying to do right now, when you think about his strategy, is to try to say, I'm taking all this stuff out of the legal realm, and I'm going to throw it all to the body politic and say, witch hunt, hoax, conspiracy, no collusion, and try to get enough public support that when the day comes, the day of reckoning comes, that he'll have enough of the public behind him that will trump the law. And so Donnie's points, I think, are that really Trump and Mueller are the same in one respect, that in his view, they're public images. They both have authenticity and they both have consistency. And within their different ways, you might hate Trump, but he's the same all the time, and he is really himself. And that's also true with Mueller, which makes them kind of well-matched opponents in some respects, again, from Donnie's point of view.
And this is exactly their strategy. I talked to two sources close to the president and Giuliani, and this is the end game for them, a political solution. They believe that the worst-case scenario ends up in a report to Congress. The worst-case scenario is a threat of impeachment in the House, and the team around the president and Rudy Giuliani feel confident that they won't get to two-thirds of the Senate convicting them. But this is where we are. So what John describes is very important.
Well, yeah, I've always said this, Nicole, that this is always about how people perceive the importance of this process to be. I've always thought that if Mueller was going to do anything, if he was going to have some big names, if he was going to make anybody do a perp walk, it'd probably be before the election. He knows that there's no, why put pearls before swine? He's not going to deliver this report to a Republican Congress that's not going to do anything. He's probably going to wait until 2019 to see what happens in the midterm. So all of this has always been political. But I will say this, the fact that he has stayed quiet, the fact that Mueller is not all up on the TV shows all the time, the fact that he looks like the Watterson from Law and Order, you know, just make his hair a little bit darker, he looks just like him. You know, he presents himself as this sober, trustable guy.
Yeah.
And as long as the public feels like, you know what, we may not trust the Democrats, we may think some of the Republicans don't like Trump, but this Mueller guy seems like he's just doing his job. And as long as he seems like that person, the investigation continues.
Yeah, so they're both old school, and Trump very much old school, kind of Queens, New York real estate, a little bit slimy, right? And Mueller, old school, law and order, exactly right. So 60-day rule. That's the Department of Justice policy. You don't do anything 60 days before, in this case, the midterm election.
Tell it to Jim Comey.
Yeah,
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah.
and again, yeah, that's why he's in trouble, right? But, you know, ambitious things to-do lists for Bob Mueller. I don't know if he could get everything done in 60 days. Decide whether to indict Kushner, Trump Jr., decide what to do about Michael Cohen if you want to horn in on the New York investigation of that. If Mr. Trump does not agree to an interview, which he will not do, are you going to subpoena him? So lots to do. I don't think he could do it in 60 days.
I want to get your thoughts on the person who sings him his lullabies at night, but I wanted to ask Ashley to take us inside her incredible reporting. And it's incredible to me, three things. One, you don't list Bob Mueller as a source or anyone on his team. So all of these anecdotes seem to be pieced together from either witnesses or their attorneys. But what they're presented with is just so detailed, and an overhead projection is like out of what Paul's describing, so old school. Can you take us inside that room and tell us what witnesses see and experience?
Absolutely. One thing that was so striking to us was actually a couple of witnesses used almost the exact same language, saying it reminded them, two witnesses said, of a classroom, although one said it was sort of a badly funded classroom from the 1970s. But you sort of, you know, it is Bob Mueller's grand jury. You expect something grand, and the portrait that was painted for us is of a government building, a windowless government building where people are sort of struck by how utterly average it seems. It's cramped. It's kind of old. That's for the atmospherics. People are also struck by sort of how thorough and meticulous and detailed Mueller's team is in their questions and what they know. They did describe, again, this is out of the 70s classroom, but that sort of old, I mean, imagine one of those old overhead projectors that's kind of rickety and it goes on a large overhead screen. But when the witnesses were getting asked questions, you know, relevant details from texts and emails were put up on that large screen. But for his being, again, as thorough and meticulous and detailed, these witnesses we spoke to were also sort of impressed by how polite and solicitous Mueller's investigators were. They often said, you know, feel free to ask us for a bathroom break. Feel free to ask us if you need to confer with your lawyers. The witnesses we talked to, Mueller was not there. This was conducted by someone on his team, although I have to caution that doesn't necessarily mean he is never there or will never be there. He just was not there in these instances.
Jeremy Bash, what does Bob Mueller's grand vision look like when you go back to what you described in the last block, which is to understand Russia's role in our election and to, you know, bring to light any crimes committed in the process of that?
And to be guided by the facts, Nicole. I mean, I know this is hard to believe in the era of Trump, but this setting that Ashley and others described is not meant to impress anybody. There are no gilded chandeliers. There's no gold wallpaper. This is about the facts. It's not about the technology. It's not about the setting. It's about only where the facts will lead the investigators and what those facts say about the conduct of certain individuals, our national security, and efforts to obstruct and undermine our justice system. And those are paramount. And, you know, I just want to comment on something that Justin noted about maybe Mueller's holding this all back and wants to deliver this to a Democratic Congress. I don't think so at all. I don't think he thinks in those terms. I think he thinks he's going to take the investigation where it goes. He'll write his report or deliver his summation at the appropriate time. It is not really tethered to a political calendar. It's not whether Democrats or Republicans are in charge. Bob Mueller is actually above it. He's actually outside of the political machinations of our Capitol. And that's actually, I think, precisely the way we want him to be.
You want to respond real quick before I go to
Under no
David?
circumstances. All of these people are political. That's part of why they do their job.
No.
It would be ridiculous for him to pretend that he could put through all this effort and deliver it to a Congress that wouldn't come to the conclusions or at least be open to the conclusions that he wants to make. I'm not
You're
saying
wrong.
that Bob
That's
Mueller
not the
has
way
an
he thinks at
agenda,
all.
but I'm saying that wouldn't make any sense for someone who put this much effort into it. We've seen it
not the way he
with, with lots of other
thinks.
people in the Justice Department.
I like everyone to have their say. I have to say, I know Bob Mueller. I know a lot of people that know Bob Mueller. I don't think Bob Mueller, I'm not even sure Bob Mueller knows when the midterms are. But we can agree to disagree. We're that kind of show. I want to read you something that lit my hair on fire, and I'm guessing you felt the same way. On Sundays, Donald Trump and Sean Hannity speak multiple times, with one calling the other to inform him of the latest developments. White House staff are aware that the calls happened thanks to the president entering the room and announcing, "I just hung up with Hannity," or referring to what Hannity said during their conversations, or even ringing Hannity up from his desk in their presence. Now, I've said on this show that Fox is not state-run media. The state is Fox and Hannity-run state. And I think it's interesting that this is just coming out, but this has been my understanding since the beginning, that Hannity calls in Trump, and the outputs of that would be the tremendous air cover Trump gave Nunes over the objections, the grave concerns of his own appointee, the man running the FBI. I mean, this seems like very welcome reporting, but something that's been going on since the beginning.
And of concern, right? Look, if there was
concern, to borrow a word from
dating
Ray.
site, Donald Trump and Sean Hannity would be that perfect match we see on television commercials on late night TV. A bromance rooted in alternative facts, right? But unfortunately, this is the President of the United States, who, if he is seeking wise and fair counsel, there are others he should be seeking it from, not from a television news host who has already said he's not even a journalist, right? He's an entertainment news host, is what Sean Hannity has said about himself. This reflects the shallowness of the counsel that Donald Trump gets. He does not rely on the preeminent secretaries within his administration. He relies on a television entertainment host.
And everyone's so tired of the, can you imagine if Obama did this line? But can you imagine if Obama called you or Rachel or Joy? What the fallout would have been?
Let me push back. I mean, me, Rachel, and we all operate in a newsroom with the standards department. It's my understanding from Fox that Sean Hannity scripts do not make their way to the legal or standards office.
No, absolutely not. I mean, listen, Fox News is an echo chamber for the very rabid base that Donald Trump hijacked to win the Republican nomination. They go hand in hand. Without Fox News, there is no Donald Trump, and without Donald Trump, there is no Fox News today.
But David's on something here, and I say this, I want to be clear to everyone at this table and everyone listening. I am not defending Donald Trump talking to Sean Hannity all the time, okay? But if you go back to the beginning of our conversation and you think that what Donald Trump is trying to do is win a political argument where he thinks the existence of his presidency is on the line, and the thing he's going to need is to have that base be rock solid and not abandon him no matter how bad the findings of Bob Mueller is. He needs that base. Right. Hannity channels that base better than anyone. So I don't think it's good for him to take advice from Hannity. I wish he talked to other people. But if Trump sees his survival in being in touch with those people, there aren't a lot of better people to talk to than Sean Hannity because he reaches more of them than anyone.
Ashley, let me give you the last word and just tie this Hannity reporting to what you're reporting about the president's state of mind over the probe. It seems like, you know, Sean Hannity is likened Bob Mueller to a mob boss running a mob family operation. If that, you think that's what's around the corner in terms of their defense against the investigation?
Well, the risk is it was sort of a pick your own poison. At the beginning of the administration, the president was also sort of hate watching a lot of MSNBC and a lot of CNN. And that created one set of headaches for this White House. This is a new set, is that he's hearing what he wants to hear. He's hearing what his base hears, but then you see him sort of engaging in some conspiracy theories, getting the advice his lawyers might not want him to have, and obviously not governing towards the center.
All right, none of those helpful. Ashley Parker and Paul Butler, thank you very much. When we come back,